You can go ahead.
Obviously looking forward to getting back on the court to compete again tomorrow night against a team that can score the ball. They have two really offensive, efficient players. Especially Taylor, number 21, ninth in the NCAA in points per game and 10th in the NCAA in offensive rebounds. And both Taylor and Adams are both players that seem to draw fouls and get extra points on the foul line as well. So obviously defending Taylor is going to be a really important part defensively for our basketball team and keeping him off the glass, and then our post defense as well.
Questions? Yeah, Eric, what's the update on Mason?
Yeah, so Mason, we got together this morning between his classes. He's going to try to practice today. Probably not do any contact stuff. Right now, it's not bothering him shooting. It's bothering him defensively a little bit when he puts his arm a certain way. So the good thing is, if he plays, we need his shooting more than we need his defense. So I think it'll be a game time decision. But he's going to go through non-contact stuff today.
You know what the injury is exactly? If you guys MRI?
What is it?
AC sprain. AC sprain?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just know it's a shoulder.
And if he can't go, obviously Scylla, you didn't play him much. He struggled. You know what you do as far as starting if Mason comes in?
Yeah, I'm still trying. If he doesn't play, I'm still trying to figure that out. Whether we'll play Scylla there again, or whether we'll go with Reggie. Those would be the two players that we'll have to probably announce right before tip-off.
As far as Scylla, just kind of looks like he's been struggling a little bit. Just kind of where do you see him right now and what he's doing?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we hope he regains his confidence. I think right now he's just going through a confidence issue and certainly with any player, you hope that they come out of if they're in a little bit of a slump or whatever you want to call it. Having said that, we've had two really close games back to back, and so there's really there's no margin for error. And then I thought, and I mentioned post game the other night, I really thought off the bench that Reggie and Jalen Harris changed the complexion of the game, and then going back and watching the film over, those two guys changed the speed of the game. We became a running team. The pace picked up. So we'll see how, hopefully JC plays better.
Last year when Chaney did start, he always seemed to get in foul trouble. Was that a concern at all? Just his tendency to foul?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to him a lot.
Hello. We are back once again for our Tuesday segment. We were out yesterday for travel reasons. I was on my way back from the holiday that I spent in Texas with the family, so that was the reason we had no show yesterday. But got back in time to make it to the Eric Musselman press conference as we brought you audio from yesterday's preview of tonight's ball game. The Arkansas Razorbacks will be hosting Austin Peay at Bud Walton Arena on Nolan Richardson Court tonight. Tip-off at 7 p.m. Heard a little bit from Muss, and I want to bring in real quick my producer, co-host, Demetrius Johnson. Welcome back. What it feel like to be back on the show, my man? We've been out for a little bit.
It's good, man. Glad to be back. Get to talking sports.
Now, we have coming up, I mean, it's been a weird SEC kind of shuffling going on. A lot of coaches losing their jobs, Demetrius. We just had a coach get fired, winning the ball game. Barry Odom at Missouri was let go, as was Matt Luke, coach at there at Ole Miss. We're going to have on here momentarily Jared Redding of the Mississippi, and we're going to talk to Jared about that. Very unexpected firing. And Demetrius, when you talk about that, was he a guy? Because I didn't see it coming, but was he a guy that you thought maybe would lose his job at the conclusion of this season? I mean, now granted, the guy had a lot of, situations in front of him going into taking that job off the Hugh Freeze deal.
Definitely, it was a couple of fires. Even Missouri. I mentioned that in the car. I wasn't expecting that fine, especially after he won the football game. So I think now, especially at the SEC, I think they're seeing a changing of the arms, and everybody realizes the SEC is kind of open for the taking. Yeah, I think LSU is going to come in and possibly win the SEC this year. But I think next year when you check it out and the quarterback leaves from LSU, I think it's a fresh page, and everybody's kind of on that rat race to see who can kind of take that big jump. So I think people are willing to throw that money out there and get top name coaches. As you see, Arkansas is, supposedly supposed to get some big names. So it's interesting just to sit back and watch.
Yeah, speaking on that at 1:30, we're going to talk a little bit about this coaching hunt that Yurachek and John Fagg, the two guys that head this search committee for Arkansas's next head football coach. We'll talk with Mark Edwards of Marked Up. We're going to continue to see what he's hearing around in his circles. We'll talk about what we know. We're going to talk about the guy that everybody seems to think, Demetrius, and that's Lane Kiffin. But we got to get out of here real quick and get this thing started. As next up, Jared Reddick of the Mississippi will be on to talk this Ole Miss situation and who's in line for the Ole Miss job. I'm telling you, the SEC, there's a lot going on, Demetrius, even when we're not playing football. I'd like to say it just means more, but we'll be back with much, much more. You're listening to On the Hill on KDSJ 479. Back in a bit. Let's get it.
From a defensive standpoint, to stay out of foul trouble.
Jalen and Jimmy shared the floor quite a bit the other night. What do you like about your offense when those guys are?
I think that just the way that basketball is evolving at the NBA level, at the collegiate level, with teams playing 2 point guards, it obviously gives you multiple ball handlers, on the floor, and so you can run your offense through 2 different guys. If we're not shooting, great from the perimeter, then those 2 guys give us great defense, and just having an extra ball handler alleviates when anybody wants to try to pressure you as well.
Coach, how do you feel about the shot selection in the past few games? I know you said you want to score more points from outside. How do you feel about that? And then do you feel like the team is passing enough? I know you have thresholds you want to reach. Have they been hitting those, and does it vary from game to game?
Yeah, actually, what we found in the past is playing against zones. Sometimes you don't pass the ball as much. You actually the time of the possession that you hold the ball becomes a little bit longer. Against zones, you fake passes and you don't put it on the deck as much. But for whatever reason, with our team, our passing kind of goes up against zone, which is a good thing. So we haven't really been concerned much.
Welcome back to our Tuesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, coming to you each and every day here from 1 to 2 p.m. on KDSJ 479. And as we all know, December is really a time not only for early signing period, but a lot of pink slips come out, during this time of year as, the coaching carousel starts. And we thought we'd talk to a guy that had an unfortunate and, to me, an unexpected firing taking place down in Oxford. So we catch up with our good buddy of the Daily Mississippian, Jared Reddick. JR, welcome to OTH, my man.
Hey, how you doing, man?
You and I talked yesterday, and it's been a whirlwind, Jared. Arkansas, several weeks ago, was the first in the SEC to remove their coach in the West. Followed last Saturday's loss to Missouri. Barry Odom there at Missouri was let go. And then the most unexpected one happened where you're at, down in Oxford on Sunday. Matt Luke was let go. Talk to me about that situation, and where do the Rebel faithful, where do they go from here?
Yeah, it was a real shocking one, simply because, when Keith Carter was named from the interim to the full-time AD, one of the first public moves that he made was to say that Matt Luke is our coach. He said, look, this is a long process of, rebuilding. You're still kind of in the ashes, and you're still trying to get out of it. They showed the glimpses and glamours of promise, although it wasn't going to translate into winning right away. That's pretty much what he said when he tried to defend Matt Luke. And just literally just a couple days after losing the Egg Bowl, 2 days, as a matter of fact, of the Egg Bowl, all of a sudden he gets fired. And, I think it was shocking to everyone who figured out about it.
Right.
But it's kind of a split area saying, thank goodness he's gone, because, the numbers speak for themselves. And you go from 6-6 as an interim coach to 5-7 to 4-8. That's, I'm not a math person, but that's obviously trending down.
Right.
But on the other side is saying, you got to give Matt Luke some time, just like Keith Carter was talking about. And so you have kind of two different ways in there, but at the same time, it was just shocking just because he just flipped from supportive to just throwing Matt Luke to the curb. It was shocking in that regard. But, there was a lot of there's been some talk and different changes, especially since you and I last talked about the head coaching job, and that's going to be really interesting down the road just because, this is the time of year, college football, a lot of false allegations, a lot of
Right.
a lot of false reports being thrown out there about who's going to be next head coach. Ole Miss had a couple of them the other day, and there are a variety of head coaches out there. Maybe it's not been as deep as it's been the past couple of years, but there's some ones that very well could fit Ole Miss. But it's just a matter of who's going to want to take a program that's, I guess, kind of in the funk, so to speak. The best way to put it.
And I want to, so to speak, kind of piggyback off that, because when you look at this whole entire situation from what Matt Luke inherited, I mean, there was a lot of sanction, reduced scholarships, all those factors went into it. And I mean, do you feel like with what Florida State did prior to Arkansas letting Chad Morris go with the Willie Taggart situation, has that set a precedent, you think, Jared, in college football to where most of these ADs are going to have maybe a 24-month, kind of evaluation period, and if things don't go in the direction that they feel after year two, then this is going to be kind of the norm where coaches get the quick hook?
Yeah, we've kind of seen that really the past couple of years other than this year, but, it really kind of got thrown into a bigger spotlight, I guess you'd say, with such a prestigious football program like Florida State, after all the success that they had underneath Bobby Bowden and under the success that they had with Jimbo Fisher. And then when Jim Fisher leaves, you replace him with a guy like Willie Taggart. And if you don't win a prestigious program like Florida State, I mean, we're living a day and age, Pat, in college football where fans don't really care about last year, the year before that.
Right.
They want to win. It's a really short shelf life in college football, and if you can't do that, and especially with what Matt Luke is doing, I know the situation that he inherited at Ole Miss, and he did a heck of a job with what he had put ahead of him, because not many coaches, I believe, would have fared much better off than Luke did. And you look at this year in particular with Ole Miss, they went 4-8. They had so many close losses.
Right.
They could have beaten Memphis, who ended up being really good. They could have beaten Cal, who was nationally ranked at the time. They could have beat Auburn at Auburn, who by the way just happened to beat Alabama a couple of days ago. And you could say, he's so close to doing something like this. Could you imagine if John Rice Plumlee, Jerrion Ely, all of these freshmen that carried a big load this year, could you imagine what they look like one more year down the road? But fans don't like to see that. There's a saying that people love sausage, but no one likes to see how it's made. and I think the same thing applies to this. They don't want to hear about, just be patient. Here's the time, trust the process. If they would have trusted the process, the 76ers NBA team might have won several championships by now. But it's just we're impatient and we want to win, and that comes with the pressure of, especially with college football being a big booming business. There's almost no room for error, and so Matt Luke was just the latest victim of that.
When you look at this going forward, you gotta, until you go forward, you got to go back to that ball game on, I believe, Friday night with the personal foul penalty. Young man scores a touchdown. An older gentleman on the football team, one of your more experienced leaders, you would expect more. He gets a penalty, hence missed field goal by the true freshman, and things just go crazy. Was it more of a kind of, did you think what happened as far as discipline things might have been one of the issues for Coach Luke? And then, my next question to that, Jared, would be, when you look for the next coach, what's the one thing he has to first address when he gets to Oxford in that locker room with that football team?
Yeah. Wait, repeat that first question again.
Was it just, the decision? Was it more of the, the disciplinary that happened that night? And then what's the one thing that the next coach has to, that's the first thing he has to make a note of. He's got to address the very first meeting when he meets those players. What's those things going to be like?
Okay, yeah, I remember now. So, yeah, going back to that first question, I I think it's just a matter of how you look at that situation. Matt Luke, it's well advertised that he is a player's coach. He was a former Ole Miss player himself. He knows what it's like to wear that uniform every Saturday. And so I think he carries that identity with him of being Mississippi made, to take pride in what you do and to kind of just stick a chest out and say, we are Ole Miss. And it's well advertised, he loves Ole Miss. He, is a Mississippi native. And he carries that player's first mentality to the fullest, is in he cares so much about him, and which he does. You ask any Ole Miss player on the team, he's going to tell you the exact same.
Right.
It was evidence when the players walked out of the Manning Center when they figured out that Matt Luke was fired. Because they wanted Coach Luke. That is because the players wanted Coach Luke led Ross Bjork to shake the interim label off Matt Luke. And I think when that spilled into the Egg Bowl Friday night, it's just a matter of which way you look at it. You can point the finger and say, oh, Matt Luke gives his players free will, and he allows them to kind of play with an edge and play with a passion and all that. But, every coach doesn't like personal foul penalties. Every player doesn't like to put his team in a position to where Ole Miss was put in that position. And you could say, well, Elijah Moore just got in the heat of the moment, which it's the Egg Bowl. It's one of the biggest rivalries in college football, especially in the Southeastern Conference. It's just a matter of which perspective to look at it. If you love Coach Luke, you would probably blame it more on Elijah Moore and just the rivalry itself. If you wanted Coach Luke gone, you would say, oh, Matt Luke can't control his players and whatnot. It's just a matter of which way you look at it. And this is just from an outsider's perspective too, because I'm obviously not a player and not a coach. I'm just a journalist. But I think when Ventura Partners, that's the lead committee to lead the Ole Miss, who, by the way, hired Kermit Davis as their basketball coach. So they hit a home run with that.
Absolutely.
And I think they kind of want a coaching model similar to Kermit Davis. If you watch Kermit Davis coach, he's a rough, tough, no nonsense. Loves his players, obviously, but if you do one thing wrong, he's going to take you out immediately.
Yes.
He demands so much out of you, but in a positive way. He's kind of kind of draws the middle line between positive and negative reinforcement as a coach.
Yeah.
And I think from an outsider's perspective, I think that's what you kind of want from an Ole Miss team. Someone who cares about their players, but has a defined line of what you should do and what you should not do. And Coach Luke had that, but it was the common perception of loving his players and all that. That I think from a fan's perspective, they say that they can't control his players, and I think they want a guy who's controls his players in a positive way and loves his players, but at the same time, it's kind of translates into the wins and the X's and O's into figuring out what it takes to win, which Luke did, but kind of take that to another level with a coach with a lot of experience,
Now, we've got about 2 or 3 minutes left in this segment. Real quick, Jared, I want you to give me some of your names that you're hearing for the possible replacement there at Ole Miss for Coach Luke. And then the second part, let's have a little fun real quick. Rate the 3 jobs that are available in the SEC between Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Missouri from 1, 2, and 3 in your honest opinion.
All righty. So as far as the names you're hearing, obviously, I think the biggest name, obviously, is coming from a coach who's 90 miles north of Oxford. How can you not pick against Mike Norvell?
Right, good point.
That close to Oxford, he did so much with what he had at Memphis. Of course, he continued what Justin Fournette started and catapulted him. He brought College Game Day to Beale Street.
Right.
Who would have thought a couple years ago that would happen? You would have 3 straight, American Conference West champions. He's recruited the state of Mississippi really well. He recruited Gainwell and O'Brien Goodson, turned them into star all-conference players. So, that's a huge boost for Ole Miss in 2 ways. Lane Kiffin is a name that's brought up, but he's brought up in every coaching search everywhere. There's Billy Napier. There's from Louisiana Lafayette. Bill Clark from UAB. And there's even a thought of bringing up Rich Rodriguez, Mike McIntyre, possibly making them head coaches because after all, they were in the Pac-12.
Right.
But as far as ranking the jobs in the SEC, I think it's kind of a toss-up between Arkansas and Ole Miss being 1 and 2.
Right.
Arkansas has a little bit more of a prestigious, culture, because they've been competitive at years in the SEC, but it's kind of been tarnished just because of the last 2 years underneath Chad Morris. And
Right.
I think because of the reputation that Arkansas has or has had prior to Chad Morris, I think you could say that Arkansas would probably outrank Ole Miss in that regard. But Ole Miss is more of a job that you would want if you kind of want to be a coach who wants to hit the reset button and kind of do it their way.
Right.
Because Ole Miss's reputation has kind of been destroyed.